Good evening, Whiskey Club members. Welcome to the March edition. We're just under the wire here. We're still in March.
Is it?
A couple more days.
Yeah.
March 30th. But welcome to the Eureka Whiskey Club virtual tasting for the month of March. First of all, thanks for everyone's patience. I know we had to push back the pickup date this month just for some reasons that were out of everyone's control. You know, supply chain these days is continues to be a struggle, but we appreciate everyone's understanding and patience with that. But really excited about this month's feature. We are joined this evening by Andrew Robinson and Wingo. Am I allowed to say her first name, or is it like Cher or Prince? Is it just Wingo?
You're allowed to say it, but it won't be repeated.
Okay, got it. Well, then it's just Wingo. Then if we won't reveal your secret identity. But I'll let these gentlemen introduce themselves here in a second. But really excited again to have everyone on the call. And as always, we will have some really cool prizes to give away. So a few housekeeping things, just as always. If you do have questions, feel free. If you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Facebook, just make sure you put those in the chat, and we will get to them. And just make sure whatever account you're logged under the name is associated with your Whiskey Club membership, because if it's not, then we won't think you're a member and probably won't ask your question. But try to get as many questions as possible. And the prizes. So the prizes this evening, Wingo and Andrew are going to have the tough task of choosing the best two questions of the night, and then I'll have the fun task of choosing who wins first place and who's second. So second place is going to get a signed barrelhead from Smooth Ambler, super cool prize. And then the first place is going to also get a signed barrelhead from Smooth Ambler, plus a really cool swag bag with a hat and a few other items in it. So a big thanks to Smooth Ambler for providing those prizes tonight. So without further ado, I'd love to have you gentlemen introduce yourselves and tell us what you do over at Smooth Ambler, and we'll get going.
Sure. You first. All right. So I'm Wingo. I have an awesome title that is National Ambassador for Smooth Ambler. I'm actually based out of Dallas, Texas, but I'm joining Andrew tonight at the distillery. I joined Smooth Ambler in January of 2021 as kind of a longtime buddy of our founder, John Little. I've been around the industry, fell in love with Smooth Ambler about 10, 11 years ago, and now it's kind of a full circle joyride that I get to now be working with a buddy.
We're friends.
I know.
Yay. Hey, y'all, I'm Andrew, the blending and processing manager here. Me and my crew take care of everything after the barrel, blending, processing, bottling, shipping, warehousing, all that fun stuff. I started with Smooth Ambler in 2015. I came from a chef background and started using that experience to blend whiskey. And here we are today. So we're glad to be here. Thanks for having us.
And Andrew's a local boy.
Yeah, hometown. So it's really great to have something that highlights our hometown and our state in such a great light, and really proud of it. And it's easy to be proud of.
Yeah, and those for those who don't know, you guys are where in West Virginia are you guys again?
It's a little town called Maxwellton, West Virginia. It's right outside a slightly bigger town called Lewisburg. It's actually incorporated, so it does have a mayor. But most people are probably really familiar with a place called the Greenbrier Resort. It's about 15 minutes from here. So if you know where the Greenbrier is, we're right there. We're about 15 minutes away. It's a place called Greenbrier County. So it's a wonderful place to be. We've got great water and great seasons and wonderful corns grown here, and we make a lot of good whiskey.
It's a beautiful part of the world, for sure.
So you said there isn't a mayor, or there is a mayor?
There is not a mayor in Maxwellton, where the distillery physically is. There is a mayor in the town next door. They have stoplights and everything in that town next over. So
they're not just waiting for you to run for mayor?
Well, we kind of run the town already. We don't have to be mayor, right? That would be that'd be demotion for us at this point.
Whiskey's the mayor, right?
Right.
Yeah. That's
Right.
right. That's right.
Well, you guys kind of already touched on it a bit, but I'm always interested in people's background, and I know Andrew, you said you came from a chef's background, but I would love to just hear both of your kind of journeys. What made you fall in love with whiskey, and what was kind of the catalyst, or point where you said, this is what I want to do with my career?
Yeah, that's a good one. So for me, the first time I had whiskey was definitely of age legally at 21 for sure. It was a Jack and
That's
Coke.
a similar story from what we've heard from a lot of people on these calls.
Yes, it's totally legal. I had Jack and Coke at a party. So really the first time I kind of explored outside of beer. Tasted like rock and roll. That's exactly what I loved. And fast forward, that's all I could drink. Fast forward, I went to a fancy company party. I was, in college at the time, working IT for a company, and they hosted a holiday party. And I went up to this open bar, which for a kid in college was awesome. And I ordered Jack and Coke, and the person next to me said, "Oh, do you like whiskey?" And I was like, "I don't know." He's like, "Well, Jack Daniels is a whiskey." I was like, "I love whiskey. Whiskey's the best." And he said, "Well, let me order you a real whiskey." So this is my first introduction into gatekeeping, and he gave me a single malt Scotch. It was a peated Scotch, and easily the worst thing that I'd ever tasted at that stage in my life. And what it did is it blew open my sensory palate. Was like, how can this be a whiskey and this be a whiskey? They're the same thing. And so I really just started this journey of, if I hate this and I love this, what can I carve out of stuff that I am really into? That took me down an American whiskey path. I finally fell in love with Scotch. World whiskey was booming. So I just kind of kept saying yes. And by the time I was 30, I had developed a skill set of having tasted a lot of whiskey so that I could help out some friends of friends who were opening a bar. And we opened a retail shop, a whiskey shop in Brooklyn with this hobby that I had developed over the past 9 years to get to whiskey. That's kind of my journey into it.
Is the shop still open?
Shop's still open. It actually looks way better than when I was there.
That's
Much
really that's really cool. Yeah, it's so funny to me. Like, I feel like even with the growth in popularity of whiskey over the years, there's still such a large segment of people that don't know that the kind of whiskey umbrella and what it covers, and that bourbon is whiskey and single malt is whiskey and Scotch is whiskey, and just we touched on it a few times on this call, but spread the good word. That's all I can say. But we're continuing to grow.
Yeah.
Andrew, you said you came from a chef's background. I don't know if you wanted to elaborate on that anymore, or give us your.
Yeah, so I started cooking here. Like I said, I'm a hometown boy. Pretty easy to get a job cooking at the Greenbrier Resort here. That led into a long career there. I got to a point where the resort work wasn't nearly as fun, working every Mother's Day and Father's Day and birthday, holiday, and Christmas and Thanksgiving. And so I left. I started my own catering company, and that's how I met the guys from Smooth Ambler. At the time, there wasn't much going on in our hometown, and so when somebody starts a business of any kind, whether it be whiskey or not, you kind of look at it and go, hey, maybe this is a great opportunity. And when it's whiskey, you're like, hell yeah, I might as well try. You never know. For some reason, I have no idea why John still hired me at the point. I had no idea what I was doing, but he gave me a chance and worked out for me really well. Wasn't a huge whiskey nerd or anything before I got into the business, but definitely chef background lends to that production aspect of, you want to try to do everything perfect and do it as best you can and create a really great product. It's not nearly as instantly gratifying as chefing was. You get to cook a plate, put it out, somebody enjoys it immediately. Now we're waiting years until something we made gets out there, but it's still just as pleasing, still just as much fun, and the aspect of everything we do has been really fun to watch our growth. It's been, every year we've been a different business. We've grown so much, so it's really been a lot of fun.
That's cool. Yeah, we like people that are from the chef's background and wine backgrounds, and it's funny how many people. It's cool. I mean, but it's funny how many people end up in the spirit side of the business. So
Yeah, yeah.
yeah. So we would love to learn more about Smooth Ambler in general. If you guys want to give me like just the history of the distillery and kind of the general ethos of the company. So
Yeah, sure. So
Smooth Ambler.
there's a couple of things that Smooth Ambler started, I think, differently. Smooth Ambler started as a craft distillery, kind of in that craft distillery boom. 2008, stuff starts getting written about. They get some stuff in order, and they can start releasing, selling things around 2009, 2010. So if we zoom out, that's a really good time for American whiskey and American craft whiskey. There's a lot of laws changing. West Virginia was no exception to that. But at the time, I think both John Little and Tag would admit that they weren't really out to start just an amazing whiskey company. They were out to start a really good opportunity for folks in the area for good work, good jobs, and something in the area to be proud of. Kind of like what Andrew was saying. It's a West Virginia pride at a time that everybody has. I'd say West Virginia is like the perpetual underdog, right? Everybody has a stereotype of it, so it's a source of pride in the beginning. And they, a lot of clear spirits were made here in the beginning, kind of figuring out what whiskey was like as fans, but they weren't whiskey makers. They were just trying to build a good company. And they went out. They were upgrading upgrading their still from when it first opened, and they were in Kentucky, and they got like kind of word of mouth and started to learn about this thing called Source whiskey, which I think we're all very familiar with now. We make an entire line of it of Old Scout, but at the time no one was really talking about this idea that you could buy some finished whiskey from someone and you can pick out the stuff that you liked, and you can have that alongside all the stuff that you got going on at your distillery. And I think from that moment on, what is Smooth Ambler and how people think of Smooth Ambler is always talking about transparency, being open and honest about what source liquid is, because that's all they know. And they did everything backwards, right? They built the distillery first. They started making juice first, and then they sourced whiskey instead of trying to prove the concept with source whiskey, make up a brand, and then retro build afterwards. So for me, that really spoke to, like, as a shop owner in New York City. I didn't meet John till 2010, 2011, when I was tasting clear spirits. It was like a month or two before Old Scout was going to come out, but I liked how they approached whiskey. It was an Americana story. They were focusing on what was really good ingredients in the area. At this time, remember, think small. No one was really making whiskey. Not a lot of beer making at the time either. So we kind of had a fair share access to a bunch of farmers locally, get some local grain. And it was really just kind of this organic growth. Ethos that throughout those never changed. It's always been doing stuff with intention. That was really big here. Not doing things that are different just to be different, but figure out what we like, how we think things should be done, and go forward with that. Never being shy about a new technology if we could afford it. But it was kind of this concept of always make the stuff that we can with the best that we have available, whether that be the grains from the local farmers, the best equipment that we could get, the safest equipment that we could get, but also juice from other distilleries. And that is now, I think, fast forward 10, 12 years later, now Old Scout, all of this stuff that we still have great access to incredible liquid for other distilleries. We have stuff that we release exclusively from our distillery. And in that time period, we put out Contradiction, which is the concept of taking the stuff that we love from other people and the stuff that we love from our distillery and playing with it, putting it together to make just like fantastic whiskey. So in a way, coming up through a craft movement and not feeling you have to be beholden to anybody, they were always saying yes to innovation, but again, out of intention and try to get something good instead of just trying to be whimsical or different. You already get enough of that being from West Virginia, you don't need to fight another fight, you know?
Andrew, do you have anything to add?
We've always tried to do what we do really well. And we were talking about this earlier. We were talking about our small batch system. A lot of people talk about small batch being, some of the bigger guys, small batch is kind of a loaded term. It just means different things for different people, right? And so for us, it means 12 barrels at a time. That's what we bottle. We talk about being consistently good, but maybe not consistent from batch to batch. And that's the little nuances that we get and the benefit we have from being a craft distillery. Not only our single barrels, but some of our batch products as well. Batch to batch, they're not necessarily exactly the same, but that's kind of what we want. They're always really good. It's really hard to create that consistency when you're only doing 12 barrels at a time, right? The big guys going to do a whole lot more, and we like that. We like the difference in that. We like that craft aspect of it. Our blenders, guys like Stu Schwab and some of the other guys that work here do a really good job of making sure that we get really close every time, and it's always really great.
Yeah, I think to put things into perspective, you guys know roughly about how many cases of whiskey you guys are producing a year?
Yeah, I think we're just under 20,000 9 liters.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that's our big. I say that we actually this year end of fiscal year for us is end of June, which is super helpful for everyone's calendar because everyone does that. It's really great to start thinking about 2023 in the middle of summer. I have opinions on that. Anyway, yeah, I think we're gonna maybe end up in June just maybe slightly over, depending on shipping supply, all the stuff that has kind of gone against everyone. We're hovering around that 20,000 case mark.
Yeah, and I think Andrew said something that's an interesting point because in certain different alcohol worlds, words like craft or small batch actually have to meet legal definition in order to use those. And kind of, to my knowledge, there's nothing like that in the whiskey industry. And then it's all about, like you said, Andrew, your interpretation of the word. Well, I don't know, you guys can chime in, but kind of my what I've heard from multiple people over the years, and this may have changed over the years, but kind of under 40,000 cases is kind of truly small batch. Would you guys say that's true? Or
there's a kind of an industry standard, and I can't think of the number right off the top of my head, but we go by proof gallons and how much we distill a year. I think I want to say it's as simple as saying less than 100,000 proof gallons a year. You're considered craft, and over that, you're doing a whole lot more. To put it in perspective, we're probably doing maybe close to that number. But if we make 3,000 barrels a year, guys like Jim Beam, Jack Daniels, big companies like that are going to make 2,000 barrels a day, right? So they'll make our entire year in a couple of days. We're down here making 3,000 barrels, working our butts off, and really enjoying it the whole time. So there's a big difference between what we do and what the big guys do.
Awesome. Yeah, it's super interesting. I mean, 12 barrels at a time. That's not a ton. Definitely a small production.
Yeah, and that's a lot to us. I can remember the times we were putting 1 barrel away a day. We went to 4, and we were like, "Oh my gosh, man, 4 barrels of whiskey! Holy cow, we better slow down." And now we're at 12, and so it's been really interesting to see that. And even for us, that seems like a lot of growth, and still it's a drop in the bucket. The guys at Jim Beam probably spill more every day than we make, and so it's always blown me away that difference in scale.
Well, that's cool. I mean, we like to partner with people that make great whiskey, and you guys are definitely in that category. And it's even better to support a small business. So, let's kind of want to transition to talking about Old Scout. We do have, Andrew has multiple barrels to taste. So, I guess before we dive into tasting, can you just tell us a little bit about Old Scout, the brand, kind of where the name comes from? I noticed that the majority of our picks, I think all our picks were 6-year and I've seen mostly 5-year stuff before. So I guess a question on top of that is 6-year kind of the new standard for these barrel picks? Are you guys planning on releasing older age statements as well? But yeah, let's start with, 5 questions in one, typical Trevor. But let's talk about maybe just Old Scout to begin with, the history of it, the mash bill, so on and so forth, and then we can move on to the other questions.
Yeah, so Old Scout, we're kind of allergic to BS at Smooth Ambler. So Old Scout was a clever way to talk about scouted whiskey, or a way to identify stuff that isn't ours. There's always been a horse featured in there. One of the founders, really big into horses. And Smooth Ambler, the name Smooth Ambler, comes from the West Virginia walking horse pace. So there was, now we were featuring the horse on the front there. I think it's definitely grown as a concept past its name. Originally it was kind of like this idea, hey, we got access to this great stuff. It lets the world know what we think about whiskey, the whiskey that we like to have. And now it represents anything that we get from another distillery that we really like. So this particular, one thing that I really like when Andy talks about it, because it was new to me, is from MGP, the way that they talk about their bourbon is they always call it by the secondary grain name. And they don't really actually care about the tertiary grain or the, they don't care about the malted barley concept. So this particular whiskey, one of our bottlings, the one that comes from Custom, is from MGP in Indiana, and it is their high rye mash bill. So it's 36% rye and 4% malted barley. And they would recall that MGP just calls that their 40% bourbon, which is really, really confusing when you see that on like an organoleptical sample that just says MGP 40% bourbon. They're like, you're sending me 80 proof? It's like, no, this is cask strength. Please treat this as cask strength. It's just the percentage of the other grain. It just shows you. That's the other thing that I like is MGP is a very large facility. They make some of the whiskey that we like the most, very consistent. A lot of brands have used them to be their brand, and we like this particular mash bill, and we consider ourselves very lucky and privileged, to your point, that we still get access to five-year-old whiskey, 6-year-old whiskey if we're sitting on it for a little bit. It's an unfair question to ask if it's the new standard. Everyone keeps buying all of our whiskey, so it doesn't age up. We would have to artificially just like sit on stuff for a while if we wanted 6.
Trying a little bit.
Yeah, Andrew's been trying this past year. He's like, oh, global supply chain issues. I can't move this barrel. Oh, look at all the 6-year-old that we have now. So I'm going to let Andrew actually talk about the custom program. That's his baby. But did I do all the markety BS happy time of like what the name is, where it comes from? Did I satisfy that?
You nailed it. Yeah, you nailed it.
Okay.
I think our members care about both, so I think we're. I
do too. Professionally, I care about both.
That's good to know. I mean, I'm happy to hear that. I was, again, when I saw the age statement, I was excited because, like I said, I've seen a lot of 5-year stuff, and see 6 years is kind of cool.
It was the one good thing of COVID that happened to us. It was the one bright spot of COVID that we got some slightly older whiskey out of it. We had a ton of problems with glass and labels and corks, and anything you can imagine, just like everybody else. I'm sure packaging was a nightmare, but it worked in our favor just a little bit. So.
We're more proficient at hand sanitizer than we were before.
Yeah, you guys love our bourbon. You should try our hand sanitizer.
Don't drink it though, right?
Yeah, please don't drink it. Please don't drink. The lawyers actually just called and made us specifically want to remind everybody not to drink the hand sanitizer, please.
Cool. So I think we're gonna move into starting to taste this whiskey. So just a quick note to our people watching live, we always encourage you putting your tasting notes and letting us know what barrel you got. Again, I believe there was 7 different barrels that went out. They all vary in proof slightly. Wingo and Andrew, you guys have 3 or 4 of the barrels there? How many do you have?
Yes, sir. I've got 4 of the 7 here.
4 of the 7. And I have 1 of the 7 that you don't have. So we have 5 out of the 7 barrels. So hopefully we can touch on a little bit on each of them. And if you have one of the 2 or 2 of the 7 that we don't have, let us know what you think, because we can't taste it.
What's your tasting notes in your opinion?
Yeah, I tasted it at one point when I picked them, but can't remember that far back. So I'm going to start with mine. I've already been sipping on a little bit, letting it open up a little bit. The high rye mash bill definitely shines. Everyone has the tasting notes here and our flavor scales. So this one is obviously a 6-year age statement. We're leaning more towards an oak flavor profile than we are grain. Actually, that high rye mash bill, a lot of floral notes on this whiskey. And then it is a bourbon, so typically sweet and spice, but I just think that rye really pops and shines in this. So I have it just teetering a little bit more towards the spice side of our flavor scale than the sweet. But again, every barrel is going to vary slightly. So you can use this as a reference, and you can say, Trevor, you're way off. My barrel doesn't taste anything like that, but I'm not going to be offended because every barrel is going to taste a little different. But I am tasting barrel number 35492.
Yes. Yeah, we have 550 right now.
I mean, I just get like pipe smoke, tobacco on the nose, a little bit of cherry, obviously some classic bourbon aromas, vanilla, caramel, but really like that fruity kind of like cherry blossom pipe smoke is really prevalent on the nose.
This one,
palate follows pretty much the nose spot on. I get some caraway seed from that rye spice, slight dill towards the end of the palate, anise towards the end of the palate. Mid palate, I'm getting a lot of fruity floral notes, and front palate, I got more of the sweet kind of caramel toffee notes. But I think the finish here for me is pretty long and lingering. My proof here is 106.8. So I think that was actually on the
that is the lowest of the 7.
lowest proof of of all the barrels. So that's kind of my assessment of this whiskey. Super good. 106.8. Don't need to dilute it any, for me at least. But if you're, I think the highest one was almost 118, right?
We've got one at 121. Yeah. So you've got 106, 108, 109, a couple of them at 114, one at 112.8, and one at 121.2.
Beautiful. Yeah. So if you guys want to roll through the barrels that you got, that would be cool.
We're on 5. What's the first? 550.
And what's
just from your. What's that?
What was the proof on that one?
That is the 114 even proof.
It's funny. We were rolling along with a lot of the same notes, but mine jumped to a little bit more cooked versions of those things, like cherry pie, like kind of combining, going more to like a marshmallowy sweet nose. But then on the palate, I'm getting a lot more oak influence. Yeah. I'm getting a lot of like good pull.
Yeah. go bomb for me on this one.
Yeah.
A lot of good wood in there. I'm getting a little bit of cherry wood. But it's great, smooth. Just like the 106, I'm sure. 114 is a really great proof for me. I like the lower stuff these days. I like not having to add a little bit of water, right? This one is like that. It's big oak, big full cherry, lots of vanilla.
I wonder
Easy sipping.
I'm curious if there's any 550s out there. Oh my goodness. Wow, this is some good,
Oh, wow.
if not daunting interaction. I'm trying to see if there's a 550. Anyone have a 550 that's also close to their keyboard and responsibly typing? That would be great.
That's when you guys are tasting right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think someone had. So this was the what? The 114? Is that what you said?
Yeah, there's two of them that are 114. One's 35523. It's 114.2. And then the 35550, and it's 114 even.
Yeah, a lot of people have the 112, but if you have that one, feel free to chime in. Let's move on to the next, if you don't mind. I'm jealous that you guys. I wish I would have saved all my samples.
Let's go to 35480 because I saw in the comments there somebody had a bottle of 35480. So maybe we'll get there.
I still have. I think this may have been one of the ones I didn't choose because there's still some left.
That's 40%. Does that mean it's 80 proof?
Yeah. So that's what they were talking about. If you can see that it says 40% bourbon, but again, that was just the percentage of the mash bill that isn't corn. So sorry, guys, keep going. I'm gonna pour this.
Just thought you found out a way.
Yeah, get out of here.
Which one are you guys on?
No, I know, Trevor, you said maybe we'll circle back to some of these questions towards the end. Is there stuff that we should pick up along the way, or like really keep it about the?
Let's keep it about the tasting now, and then I'm going through these, and I'll chime in if there's anything relevant. But yeah, we'll save all the questions till the end.
By the fourth or fifth cast ring tasting, it's going to be.
Yeah, we're gonna.
This is the best. I mean, we should go into business together. This nose seems to be more on the herbal side for me. Like, yeah, a lot more of the rye spice sticking out.
I'm getting a nice citrus nose. No,
This is the 35484.
No, 480, 109.6 proof.
Wow,
Boy, it's an easy sipper, man.
Yeah.
I mean,
that 109. It's quite the difference
dangerous,
from
right?
the 114. Yeah.
Same thing there. A lot of great oak. It's quite a bit sweeter than that first one. 550 for me. Picking up some nice citrus and a little bit of vanilla in there. But boy, it's got a big, thick, viscous corn mouthfeel. Really coats that tongue. I really like that. I like those kind of bigger corn bombs that kind of do that. So this one's most likely going to be my favorite of all of them, probably.
That was the 109.
Yeah, 109.6.
I don't see anybody that says they have. Oh, Rodney Archer says he has the 109. Rodney, feel free to chime in if you.
Yeah, that's what you think, Rodney.
I love when you're like kind of in your own space and get called out by strangers doing that.
He just poured himself somewhere. He's like, "Oh shit, I wasn't taking notes."
I'm 109.
Looks like a lot of people have the 121.2, which is cool to see.
That's interesting. It was the lowest yield barrel of all of them, and we actually split that. That was the one that ended up a little bit in Nevada. So you guys have some fans in Nevada as well, not just California, right?
Yeah, so all our club members are California and Nevada. We have restaurants in other states, but those are the two states that legally allow us to do this program.
Yeah, nice, very nice.
Heard.
So yeah, that was interesting. The highest proof, lowest yield of all the barrels. So you can kind of drum up all the imagination you can of what happened in the rick house, right? If it's higher up in the rick house, more water is going to evaporate than alcohol because water will, just like it boils, water boils at a higher temperature than alcohol does. So there's all kinds of probably really great flavors going on in that. Even though it's higher proof, probably a lot of really great flavors going on.
I'm gonna let you guys keep going. I'm gonna make my the cocktail. So
Okay.
you have the sheet here. You made your infusion kit. Got some coffee beans, some dried pears, some dried oranges in here. So we're gonna make the cocktail, but I'll make the cocktail. You guys keep talking about the barrels. So keep going.
Okay. So just also a little bit about the program. Maybe some people are curious about curation or the process of people choosing custom barrels. So when we get stuff from MGP, and there's stuff that we bottle, we do our own blending, and we'll put it out as Old Scout 99. I think we might have a bottle of it here, but something that you can kind of find out in the world that doesn't have this custom label on it. But this is taking that whiskey, marrying it, and then lowering the Vandrew White, lowering the proof to 99. So if someone wanted to do a custom barrel pick like y'all have, there's a whole process they can go through and then get to taste some of these casks, and all that goes through Andrew. And so this is a particularly interesting assignment, because I would say, and I'm not going to speak too much for you, but Andrew's pretty violently against picking whiskey for other people. And so when it comes down to coming up with a pretty large selection of stuff to go through and working with folks like Trevor, like how do you, it's a different shift in your job. A lot of times you like to let folks say like, hey, come play down this palette, this pool, and not really get way in too deep. So when you actually do taste along, or you're helping out someone like Trevor, how do you hit all the different variations? Again, this is same age, typically made within a couple of days of each other from the same facility, typically aged in similar locations. We just found one that's probably aged in a very different spot. Like, how is that? I know it's an adjustment to your job, but do you enjoy that? Is that fun to go through those?
It is. I mean, that's the beauty of single barrels, right? Everything's always different. It's kind of a bespoke process, right? I mean, everybody wants to chase the allocated stuff. At the end of the day, a single barrel is the ultimate allocation. Once it's gone, it's gone. Typical yield for us is 180 bottles out of a barrel. So that's 30 cases. Once it's gone, that's it, right? There's no more of that left. And that's the fun, and one of the reasons I try to stay out of the custom barrel selection process for our customers. Our job on the blending side, and our job is as far as quality assurance and quality control when it comes to our batch products is a little different, maybe than the single barrel process. Really you're coming to us for that ultimate exclusivity and the bespoke product that nobody else can get. So we don't like to get involved. It's your barrel. We all like different stuff. I learned that as a chef. I'm going to eat something that you won't, and vice versa. And same thing with drinking bourbon. Enjoying bourbon. There's a lot of different palates out there, a lot of subjectivity. So my biggest fear would be to guide somebody to a barrel, and then later on down the road they think I'm a jerk because I sold them something that I was just trying to get rid of, right? And so it's a pretty big deal to me to make sure that you guys get what you guys want, and our job is to make sure really that it's not wrong, right? We're looking for faults. We're looking for inconsistencies in manufacturing, things like that, quality assurance, things like that. As far as the end goal in single barrels, that's really the customer's job to pick the barrel that they want.
It's a tough job. I have a very tough job.
We have to do it on Mondays too. It's terrible sometimes. I'm telling you.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's wanting to be as involved as possible in the selection process is definitely important to us. So if you had a chance to make the cocktail, this is whiskey espresso. I'd call it the whiskey version of a espresso martini, if you like whiskey and not vodka. But cheers.
Cheers.
Another.
Weird one.
That's delicious.
Do you want to do another one? Yeah, let's do it.
How many more barrels do we have, gentlemen?
We're deciding our next one here. What is this?
We're gonna pour 2.5 or 3.55 239. This will be the third of the four that we have.
Oh man, this goes off as like I get toast Maillard kind of that barrel toast.
Maillard reaction.
Yeah.
I was gonna say.
Speaking my language now, all right?
Chef terms over there. Oh yeah, I smell the Maillard reaction.
It just hit me.
I see it in there a little bit. I get you. Yeah, I see what you're getting.
All I smell and taste is coffee now after.
Yeah, I do like. Trevor, I like tasting these. Essentially, are very close together, and so just like any fun outlier tasting, when you have stuff that is exactly the same and you set it next to each other, your brain just files away all the similarities, and what sticks out are the differences. So it's kind of fun to get to the third one and be like, oh, this is. You're only smelling the difference from the other ones.
Yep.
No, for sure.
So whoever has this one,
You want to? Which one was it again? You say it one more time.
it was the 353 or
2.3.
2-3.
So Jamie Dent there's got a lot of marshmallow after it opens up.
Oh yeah, Jamie Dent has the same one. He is that what he just said? He said marshmallow on the nose. Is that what you just said?
Yeah, marshmallow on the nose there. I get that. It makes it a little circusy peanut for me there on the palate.
As this one, my barrel, my glass here has opened up a little bit. I'm definitely getting that kind of toasted marshmallow on the nose as well. I didn't get that at the beginning at first.
I thought that was a whiskey bottle. I just saw Andrew chugging out of my periphery, and I was like, whoa.
whoa. No, just water. Just water.
These have been real good and fun to see the similarities.
Ooh, look at the legs on that.
Oh yeah. What was approved?
114.2.
The other 114. Okay.
Got 114.2. When
You guys have one more, yeah?
yeah, we got
All
one
right.
more. Yeah, we got one more to go through here, and then we'll see if anybody's got we'll try to find somebody that's chiming in on that the high proof of the 121 35493. Look over here and see if anybody's chiming in on that one.
Oh,
We'll
you
get to
guys
work
don't have the
on
121?
No, we don't have that one here, unfortunately.
Michael Ostor, Richard Wevel. Sorry if I'm pronouncing it wrong. I think both of you guys have the 121. If you want to chime in on some tasting notes, if you feel up to it.
Yeah, internet. Yes, it does need upgraded. We are at a geographical anomaly here. We are 2 weeks away from everywhere. So if you guys do come to visit, plan ahead. Make sure you know where you're going and where you're coming. We're up here in them hills, man. We're lucky to have cell phones sometimes. Oh, I haven't moved on yet. All right, so we'll move on to 35479. This is the 108.2 proof version. Thank you. It's a tough job.
Yeah, this is.
I do want to make sure we have time for the questions. I don't want to rush you guys, but if we can breeze through or go through this one fairly quickly, just so I can get to some questions. We may go over our hour time point here. My cat got in there.
Battery's running out. Okay. Yeah, so same thing on this one. You know, big nose. A lot of great caramels on there.
I need to figure out.
Again, you know, low proofer, so obviously it's a little bit smoother than the one we just had, the 114 proof. This is 108, and man, it's easy to sip on. I got to tell you, I really have gotten into these low proofers lately. It's kind of like the low ABV beers. You know, when I get a chance to sit and have a drink or two, I don't want to waste the experience. Maybe just on one, right? I want to have a couple, and so these low proofers are really provided.
I love that you're calling low proof 10. What is it? 109?
Yeah, right. So I don't even think like 80 proof is nothing anymore, right? It's like
I mean, 80 proof whiskey has its time and its place, but
yeah, and it's exactly.
I say that. No offense to anybody out there that likes 80 proof whiskey. I always say 80 proof whiskey is a waste of time, but
well, you know, it's got its place for some things, right? Like everything.
good in cocktails.
I think yeah, exactly. It's a good time to talk about chill filtration and how we don't do it here. You know, you see anything under 92 proof. It's really why we bottle Contradiction at 92 proof, and we lowered that proof. We didn't want to chill filter anything, so we stayed there. We didn't lower it anymore. But we don't chill filter anything here, especially none of this Old Scout bourbon stuff that goes into single barrels. It's basically dumped out of the barrel, filtered through what amounts to a super fancy coffee filter. It's a pleated 1 micron filter. Then we have another 0.5 micron pleated filter for quality assurance with the bottling machine. So it really goes straight from barrel through the bottling machine into bottles, uncut and unadulterated, really. The filtration amounts to really kind of just pulling out big chunks of char, stuff that just wouldn't be that great to have in there.
Oh, I think we may have lost them. Well, that is unfortunate. Well, while we wait for Andrew and Wingo to come back, I guess we can talk about some upcoming exciting things. If you do follow me on Instagram, at Trevor Loves Beer, shameless plug there, but you may have seen that I was at Buffalo Trace a couple weeks ago. Went down there and met with the team there and selected some barrels. So excited to announce that we do have some cool and exciting upcoming things coming from Buffalo Trace. Obviously, the turnaround time is going to take a little while, a few months, but excited to announce we selected some Buffalo Trace barrels. We selected some Weller 107 barrels. We selected some Eagle Rare barrels, some E.H. Taylor barrels in smaller quantities. And a few people have asked me how we're planning on rolling that out, because that will be an add-on to the club. And some George Stagg Jr. barrels or Stagg Jr. barrels, as well as a lot of upcoming and exciting things as well. But kind of just as we try to kill time here, I just maybe thought that was a good thing to mention. So I know a lot of people are excited about that. But We have Wingo back.
Yeah, we've had to put our heads together to find a way to get power to the middle of the still house floor. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. Whew. That's the other thing is like the microphone was plugged into where the power goes. I think we're all sorted now. I don't know. Did we move on? Did y'all move on to questions yet? Or did Andrew go through the last tasting?
Well, no. Yeah, let it. We did not move on to questions. Took the time to give the people watching live some exciting news about some upcoming stuff we have going on with the club.
Cool.
But now that we have you back, I'd love to move on to questions here. There's Andrew, but yeah, let's move on to questions. So thank you for everyone for your contribution for the tasting notes. I hope you enjoyed the barrel that you got. If we didn't get to the barrel that you have, apologize, but I was super happy with the barrel I got, and obviously the ones we selected. So a lot of great feedback. So moving on to the questions. So first question. Some of these questions, I believe, have already been answered, so I don't want to double ask. Travis Ashbrook asked, do you have to have a beard to work in the whiskey industry?
Yes. They hold you down and make you grow one for the first 3 weeks. And if you can't, then you're out. You're done.
There's a beard fertilizer. They just pin you down and they sprinkle it all over your face and just spray you down with a hose. And
yeah, it's like the grass when they make the dirt green. Like you just make your face brown a little bit, then a day later it just all grows out.
Scott Morris wants to know, we kind of asked this question, but which bourbon do you make and which ones do you procure? He says he has a bottle of Contradiction, and it appears as though you make and blend that one.
Yeah, it's a great question. It's I think if you were to come visit the distillery, you may not know that we procure quite a bit of whiskey. You would just think that we make a ton of whiskey, but in reality, we make a ton of whiskey and we buy a ton of whiskey, and then we blend those two efforts. And those are the three families. So if you were to think about Old Scout as a brand, as a whole family, Old Scout is everything that is scouted whiskey. Everything that's homemade here and released is now called Founders Cast Strength Series. And you can, I think some of that may have come out California way, but it's pretty small. It's probably going to get bigger over the years.
Super limited, yeah. I mean, like I said, we were only at that time making 4, 5, 6 barrels a day. And so I think we had about 900 cases of the first Founders Cast Strength Rye Whiskey release we made. We'll have a Founders Cast Strength Rye Bourbon release ready soon, hopefully by late summer, fall. And then any of the products you see, like as Wingo said, Contradiction is a blend of those two efforts together, right? So Old Scout's something we buy, Founders is what we make, and then Contradiction is the effort, both of those efforts blended together, right? So we're super proud of that. It's our flagship, and it does have whiskey that we make in West Virginia in it. So
cool. Danielle Williams wants to know, Andrew, probably good question for you, but Wingo also chime in. You know, I'm sure you dabble in some cooking as well. Danielle wants to know what food dishes you recommend that pair well with this whiskey that we're tasting.
Wow, lots of good stuff. That's a great question. Lots of good sauces could be made. Anything with steak, obviously, and whiskey goes well together. Sometimes, to be honest with you, my favorite thing to do with a nice bourbon is take a nice bowl of vanilla ice cream and just pour some bourbon on top of it and go to town. Simple as that.
All right, favorite brand of vanilla ice cream? You got to tell us now.
What's that?
What's your favorite brand of vanilla ice cream?
Oh man, I mean Turkey Hill, I guess maybe could be a good one. Is that still? You guys get Turkey Hill out there? Is that an East Coast thing? I should have said Graders. Everybody knows Graders, right?
I don't think we get
that.
that.
You're just mentioning local. Like, I'm a Texan, so I have to say Bluebell, like by contract.
All right, Bluebell, yeah.
I love that you're like, well, everybody knows Graders. I was like, I've never heard of Graders. I bet y'all get Graders out in California.
I don't believe so. Believe so. But I'll take your word for it. Garrett Logan wants to know, what's your process from choosing the barrels from your source distilleries, like this great one from Indiana?
So we do it a couple different ways. Sometimes we're on the front end of the maturation. So sometimes we get white dog, and we'll pick out which distillate we like above the others. Typically, that's the way we're doing it. Typically, we're getting white dog, and we're making sure it's what we want it to be before it ever hits a barrel. Or we're picking barrels that maybe somebody else contracted to have made, and then they became available, and we get to taste it when it's mature. So both ways. Either before or after the maturation process in the barrel. I think obviously tasting the mature whiskey is more fun, right? But it's really neat to get to see what it was before and how it develops into what we want it to be as a finished product.
Yeah, I'd say spot purchasing, that this is a fun industry term, but spot purchasing when you buy something at age is like all of the upside and all the downside. You don't have much control of what went into it to get it there. And so you just kind of hope and pray, and you taste it. And if it's great, then fantastic, we're good to go. But then you're also paying a premium because it's already aged. So you get the benefit of not having that time, and maybe it's delicious and you get to see how it's going to end up. Whereas when I think we like to have stuff that we have more control over distillate going into the cask.
This is kind of just piggybacking on that question, but Daryl Fox asks, has it become harder or costlier to source whiskey since the old Scout line began?
Both.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep.
Yes.
Why
I mean, I think it's fair to expound on that. And yes, it's more difficult. And this is kind of one of those things. It's hard to not sound braggy in it, but that's one of the things we pride ourselves in, is that we get to give the world. We basically try to stay out of the way of this whiskey that we really like at this age. Not a lot of people get access to this whiskey still. A lot of it is relied on our old relationship from 10 years ago that we still get access to this. So
are those handshake deals, or is that an actual contract?
I don't know what that is, Trevor. You really cut out. Our internet is horrible here. The refrigerators are turning on. Man, what's the next question?
I forgot what I even asked. Jonathan Kane wants to know, is being in West Virginia an advantage or disadvantage for the brand? Less competition, but less foot traffic? ?
I feel like that has to go to the hometown boy. I want to hear the pride and bias.
Oh man, it's an advantage, obviously. I mean, I think it has its ups and its downs. I think what we see in maturation, a little bit longer here, maybe in West Virginia, than what Kentucky gets in 4 years. Maybe we get the same about 6 or something like that. Is that better or worse? You could probably make an argument for both. I think those mellower aging seasons are probably a benefit for us. We get more ups and downs, more hot and cold, and so it leads to maybe a better process.
Accelerated aging, almost.
Yeah, and same thing as Kentucky. We got a lot of really great limestone water here. We've got a really great place and great ground and fertile earth to grow a lot of great corn and wheat. We don't do really well. Say that.
Pretty similar climates, right?
Yeah, mostly. We're a little bit higher in elevation, and so it's a little bit cooler. We don't stay as warm for as long, so they have maybe 2 more months of heat than we do here in West Virginia. But like I said, all the same stuff. I mean, everything we do here. And I think the hometown piece of that, the community piece of that, everybody really cares about what they're doing. Our farmers don't just grow corn. I mean, they grow corn. We put it through, they clean it better. So we put it through a seed cleaner as opposed to just a grain cleaner, which pulls out more of the chaff and other things that we don't want in that grain. So we get a cleaner product. We get a product that's got a higher carbohydrate, or a corn product that's got a higher carbohydrate content. So we actually get a higher yield out of some of our local corn as compared to when we get some corn from elsewhere. We get a little bit more alcohol out of it. And sometimes it's significant. I've seen 10, 15 proof gallons higher on a batch just because we're using a better, higher carb count corn that's grown here locally.
That's cool.
And then it's just that local piece. I always tell everybody when they come and do the custom barrel selections, you travel to a bigger distillery and you're the 300th group they've seen this year, and it doesn't really matter that much to their community. When you come see us, the people that come here and spend money on our bottles and come to see the distillery special releases and custom barrel selections and all that, they spend money in our community, our gas stations, our hotels, our restaurants. And for a small community, that makes a big difference, right? And so that's, for me, one of the best things about being here and what we're doing is how it's played off into the rest of the community, right? Our farmers have grown. We started with one farmer growing corn. He's contracted out other farms locally. Same thing with our spent grain. We've had one farmer the entire time that takes all of our spent grain. He went from having 50 head of cattle to having 150 head, and now he's a feedlot as well. And so other people will bring cattle to him to finish it before they send it to slaughter. Our hotels, restaurants, all that stuff is benefited because of our presence. There's a new cooperage here called the West Virginia Great Barrel Company. They're making really great barrels here in West Virginia out of West Virginia white oak. And so to see all that growth and see what it's really meant to our community and our state, it really makes me happy. And that's really our benefit is we have something to be proud of and get behind as a state and as a people. Yeah. And that makes a difference to the people that live here. And so it's been a lot of fun to see that. I always say, you make bourbon in West Virginia and sell it in Kentucky, you're doing all right.
We like those days.
No, that's super cool to hear. I mean, one of the main reasons I've been with Eureka for 11 years, and we've always had a very strong commitment to a sense of community, and it's really awesome to hear, other companies that have that same kind of mindset. And we work with some bigger brands, but one of my main focuses when starting this club was to introduce people to brands that I loved that maybe they hadn't heard about. And you guys make phenomenal product, and it's just even more reassuring just to hear you say that and your strong sense of community. So that's really cool. I got a couple more questions. I know we're a little bit over time here on our hour, but I want to. This one's just a fun question. I just wanted to ask it. Scott Morris says, there's a disclaimer on the contradiction bottle that states no elephants were harmed in the making of this whiskey. There's no such disclaimer on Old Scout. He wants to know if the horse is okay.
Yeah, horse is fine. Horse is well fed, been stabled, well taken care of. We don't race him anymore or anything like that. He doesn't have to carry a bunch of white dog down to the rig houses anymore. We bought a pickup truck for that. So he's doing all right, man. He's doing good.
All right, and then two more. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
This is another fun question. Rodney Archer says Wingo's biography mentions coffee, beer, and playlists. And Andrew, you can answer this as well. I guess he wants to know what your favorite beer is right now, and what album are you listening to?
Oof. Favorite beer is real tricky. Favorite's hard. I'll tell you the last few that I've had. So there are a couple of great breweries right around us. And
Turning Point.
What?
You're in Dallas, right? Turning Point's a good one. I don't know if you've had anything from them.
Yeah. Brewing is really turned up in Dallas.
Right. Go ahead.
If I'm ever in town. But we have what's great about the two locals is that we've been able to play with them with casks. And so tonight I tasted a oatmeal stout that was aged in some of our rye barrels. That did not suck. It was wonderful. I had to have just a little sample before we came into this so that I wasn't too enjoying and too giggly. That was really, really good. I like across the way they make it's another stout aged. Actually, no, what is Great Claw? Is it a stout?
It's a stout.
Yeah, it's a stout. Yeah. It's imperial stout. That's they use our cask for it, and I like both the combination of those. But I crave novelty. So sours. I like really low sessionable Berliner Weiss. I like weird things. I don't mind tart. I don't mind malty. That's an impossible question for me.
Yeah, and same for me. I like the neat stuff, the weird stuff, the odd things of fermentation like sours and farm ales and things that have just different processes. I find that to be really fun. I don't have a necessarily favorite beers, but I've got a lot of really great friends at other breweries like Greenbrier Valley Brewing. We've got Cool Ridge or Weathered Ground over in Cool Ridge, and then we've got Big Draft right here in our backyard. And so all those guys, we support the local guys, and they've all aged beer in our barrels, and we've even taken some of those barrels back and aged some whiskey in them as well. And so we get to play a little bit like that with our friends, and that's a really neat process, and we enjoy it a whole lot.
Yeah, in terms of music, I'm obsessed with like same type of thing, hipster novelty. I don't know that's really ever quite good. It's just something that I haven't heard before. I wouldn't recommend it. I will say though that Rory, Raury, has a couple of new tracks out. He hadn't put anything out in a few years. So if you're wanting just some interesting vibe music, Raury. You took me to my first.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yeah, Andrew.
Yeah, I'm a big hippie. It comes to music. It's like Dead and Company and those guys. Right now, Billy Strings, I think everybody knows, is super hot and super good and killing it, right? And so, Government Mule is probably my favorite band of all time. So, kind of a dirtball hippie, like to go to music festivals kind of guy. So, that's what's on my playlist most of the time.
Love it. All right, guys, we're gonna wrap things up here. I'm gonna go roll through these questions. You have the hard task of picking your favorite. I have the harder task of picking the first place and the second place. So, running through these really quick. Do you have to have a beard? Which bourbons do you make? Which do you source? And which do you blend? The pairing question about what would you pair with this whiskey? What is your processes from choosing sourced whiskeys? Has it become harder to source whiskey since the old Scout line began?
Least favorite question. PTSD.
Sorry, Daryl. You've been eliminated.
We love you.
Is there an advantage or a disadvantage for being in West Virginia? The question about how is the horse doing? And the last question is the favorite beer and your favorite album at the moment. So hopefully you can remember those. I
think my favorite question was West Virginia. I like talking about the climate and community benefits. That was mine.
Yeah, I think
I agree.
All right, you got to choose another one that Andrew. Sorry.
I like the horse question. I mean, we're not only we're worried about the elephant, we're worried about the horse as well. I mean, it's good looking out. I'm an animal guy. I've got a dog I've got a Great Dane, so that's almost a horse.
It's a horse. Ruby's a horse.
And so I'm close to that. I feel the guy that wants to worry about the horse. I feel it. It's nice.
You never know what's gonna win. Random question.
It's our own March Madness.
You know what? If I push come to shove, I would say both of your favorite questions was the question about West Virginia. So I'm going to choose that as the first place winner. So let's see here. Who was that? Jonathan Kane. Jonathan Kane, you were having a signed barrelhead coming your way with a cool swag bag from Smooth Ambler. And then Scott Morris, you're going to also get a signed barrelhead from Smooth Ambler. So we will be reaching out to get your contact information. Gentlemen, Wingo, Andrew, extreme pleasure to have you on. Thank you for allowing us to feature your amazing whiskey in our club this month. And hope you guys have a good evening.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, y'all.
Y'all be safe out there.
Good night.